Squirrel Archiving runs quietly in the background, automatically managing SharePoint storage based on your organization's lifecycle policies. But sometimes, users need to take action themselves, whether it's restoring a file they need or archiving something that's no longer in use. In this video, I'll show you just how easy it is to manage files with Squirrel Archiving, right from the SharePoint interface, no IT support required. Let's look at a user now interacting with a stub file and restoring their archived data on SharePoint. So, here in the SharePoint UI, you'll notice this file, Action Item Slideshow PowerPoint. At first glance, it looks like a normal file, but it's actually a stub. Now, all a user needs to do is click on the file and the stub opens in the browser. The stub file can be customized with your branding. To restore it, the user just right-clicks the link at the bottom and selects Open in New tab, and that's it. The restore process begins automatically. Here's what happens behind the scenes. First, the file is queued for restore. Once the tick appears under queued, this page can be closed. Then, it's securely transferred from Azure Blob Storage to the Squirrel appliance. Squirrel then decompresses and decrypts the file. Once verified, the file is sent back to its original location in SharePoint. Throughout the process, data integrity checks are run to ensure the file isn't corrupted. Finally, once the file has been fully restored and validated, the stub file is deleted from SharePoint and the archived version is removed from the Squirrel system. Once the process is completed, a link at the bottom of the page is available taking the user back to the restored file. And just like that, we now go back in the SharePoint Online UI. You can see here that the Action Item Slideshow PowerPoint is now fully restored in SharePoint. Not only is the file itself back, but it also includes the complete version history. In this case, you can see that 3 previous versions of the document were successfully restored exactly as they were before the archive. That's how simple and seamless it is to restore a file from a stub using Squirrel. Now that we've seen how to restore an archived file using a stub file, let's take a look at the Squirrel SharePoint buttons. As you may have noticed earlier, there are small buttons next to both folders and files in the SharePoint UI. For folders, clicking either the Archive or Restore button will apply that action to all archived files within the folder and any subfolders inside it. For individual files, these buttons provide a quick visual indicator of their status and let users perform archive or restore actions instantly. Restoring a file with the Restore button. In this example, we are going to restore the file called Asset Inventory Roster Jan. Over to the right, you'll see the green Restore button. Clicking it starts the same restore process we saw earlier with the stub file. Just like with the stub file, Squirrel handles everything behind the scenes. It queues the file for restore, transfers it securely to the Squirrel system, and then decompresses and decrypts both the file and all of its versions. Once that's done, the file is sent back to its original location in SharePoint Online. Squirrel then runs a final integrity check to ensure the file is free from corruption. Only after that is the stub removed from SharePoint and the archived copy deleted from the Squirrel system. And once again, the user is provided with a direct link that takes them right back to the restored file in SharePoint. Once the restore is complete, the user is presented with a link that takes them straight back to the file's location in SharePoint. And here it is, fully restored, along with 7 previous versions of the document, all intact. Squirrel Archiving is designed to work automatically, archiving content based on lifecycle policies set by your organization. These policies might archive files after a certain period of inactivity, or based on where the file is stored. It's a set and forget system that keeps your SharePoint environment optimized behind the scenes. But there are also times when a user knows that a particular file is no longer needed for day-to-day work and that it's ready to be archived right now. That's exactly what Squirrel's User-Initiated Archive button is for. It gives users the ability to clean up their own content, reduce clutter, and move less used files into secure storage, all without waiting for a policy to trigger or involving the IT team. Now let's look at how a user can archive a file themselves. Back in the SharePoint UI, you can see the Squirrel activity buttons next to each file and folder. Since we previously restored the Action Item Slideshow PowerPoint, we'll use that same file again for this example. You'll notice that this file currently has 3 versions. And just to clarify, this process works for any file that has an Archive button next to it. To begin, simply click the Archive button. A new window opens, connecting to the Squirrel backend. Here, you'll see a confirmation that the file has been successfully added to the archive queue. Once that message appears, you can close the window. Squirrel now begins the archive process behind the scenes. It copies the original file and all its versions, then compresses and encrypts the content. During this step, integrity checks are run to ensure there's no corruption. Once everything is confirmed, the file is replaced in SharePoint with a stub file, allowing users to restore it anytime with just a click. Now let's take a look at a full folder restore, a feature that allows users to restore all archived files within a folder, including anything archived inside its subfolders. Just like with individual files, you'll see two buttons next to each folder, Archive and Restore. In this example, you can see that within the Documents folder, there are multiple archived files. Instead of restoring them one by one, the user can simply go back to the folder level and click the Restore button. A confirmation prompt will appear, asking if they are sure they want to restore all archived files in the folder. Clicking OK proceeds with the restore. The user is then redirected to a new tab where the restore request is queued. Here, they'll see confirmation of how many files are about to be restored. Once that's visible, the window can be safely closed. Now, heading back into the SharePoint UI and into the folder we just restored, you'll see that all the previously archived files are now fully restored, right back in place and ready to use. There are times when users or teams are finished with an entire batch of documents, maybe a completed project, a campaign, or even just a department folder that's no longer active. Instead of manually archiving files one by one, Squirrel allows users to archive entire folders in just a few clicks, making large-scale cleanup quick and efficient. Let's take a look at how a user can archive all files within a folder, including anything inside its subfolders. Back in the SharePoint UI, previously, we used the Restore button to bring everything back. This time, we're going to use the Archive button to move content into long-term storage. Let's use the public folder as an example. You'll see that none of the files inside this folder have been archived yet. While it's possible to click the Archive button next to each individual file, that would take some time. Instead, we simply go up one level and click the Archive button next to the public folder itself. A confirmation prompt will appear, asking if you are sure you want to archive the entire folder and its contents. Click OK, and you'll be redirected to a new browser tab, which confirms that the request has been submitted. In this case, it shows that 82 files have been queued for archiving. Once confirmed, the tab can be safely closed. Back in the SharePoint UI, we can return to the public folder, and now you'll see that all files have been successfully archived, replaced with stub files and ready to be restored whenever needed. As you've seen, Squirrel Archiving makes it easy for users to manage their own content, whether that's restoring individual files, archiving folders, or cleaning up old documents, all from directly within the SharePoint interface. By automatically offloading inactive content and empowering users to manage their storage, organizations can reduce SharePoint storage costs by up to 70% without sacrificing access, compliance, or usability. If you'd like to see Squirrel in action with your own data, we'd be happy to give you a tailored demo. Just send us an email at sales@smika.com and we'll show you how Squirrel can save you time, money, and storage.